Hello, wankers. Flapjack Bickle here to burst the bubble of some of the most acclaimed films and TV series. Today's pick is the 1972 epic crime drama The Godfather, directed by Francis Ford Coppola from a trashy but well-crafted novel by Mario Puzo. Now, this is a film that invariably makes the top 10 list of best movies ever made, but to be honest, I don't really give a shit about the Pauline Kaels and Roger Eberts of this world. I mean, if critics and fanboys want to trip over their dongs calling The Godfather a perfect film, that's up to them. But for me, cinematic perfection doesn't exist and never will, and anyone who thinks it does is frankly talking out of their cornhole. Anyway, my questions are, is The Godfather really that good? What are its flaws? And how does it stack up 50 years later? I think a good place to start is the main man himself, Mr. Coppola. Now, don't get me wrong, there are certain things in this film that work brilliantly thanks to him, but no one ever seems to highlight the flaws in his direction. I find the biggest problem here, and the main reason the film hasn't aged as well as it should have, is because of his camera coverage, as in there's not enough of it. Now, this would be okay if it was just a couple of isolated scenes, but the film's just riddled with bad coverage. Take the scene between Michael Corleone and Kay at the wedding near the beginning of the film. This is the sequence where Michael tells that infamous bandleader story. The camera placement, a choice of shots and the editing is way off here, really disjointed, and it hurts the scene, which is a shame because the dialogue's so memorable. I think often if there's not enough coverage in a scene, the viewer can feel distance from certain characters or the action in general, plus it hurts the pacing. And if you don't believe me, try re-watching the film and count the amount of times you're waiting to see a reaction shot from one of the characters but just aren't getting it. There are tons of examples of questionable coverage and editing in the film, but I'll just highlight a couple of others so we don't get bogged down in it. Firstly, the Sonny and Carlo fight scene. Well, I say fight scene, but it's more of a kick the shit out of Carlo scene. Now, I can't stand overly edited fights or action scenes, and I think it's good to try and capture them as unbroken as possible, for the sake of authenticity. But Coppola just takes it to a ridiculous extreme here. I mean, the fact is, you can't choreograph a movie fight scene from one angle. So when Sonny stage punches Carlo in the face, he misses by about 2 feet. Why Coppola didn't change the angle here is bizarre, and the credibility of the whole fight takes a nosedive at this point. Admittedly, it does get back on track when he treats Carlo to a dustbin lid surprise. Plus, I love Sonny's choice of shoes, which are fucking gruesome and stunning at the same time. The other scene I wanted to highlight, which seems to be more of a sort of bizarre editing decision than anything else, is the final scene of the film where Connie bursts into Michael's office to confront him about Carlo's murder. Now, dramatically, this part of the scene should surely be about Connie's grief and rage at the death of her husband, but instead it focuses almost exclusively on Michael's reaction, and it just feels wrong. I think it's impossible to watch that sequence and not conclude that this is a horrible editing decision. I mean, Coppola can't even give his own sister her moment, the cheap bastard. Anyway, I think it harms the scene, and when it's added to all the other similar missteps, they kind of collectively diminish the film's effectiveness for me. The second problem that I want to tackle is the film and character's lack of logic, which ranges from the trivial to the outright ludicrous. I'll start with the family photo scene at Connie's wedding. Why would they even line up for this important picture when they know Michael isn't even there? But more to the point, why the hell isn't he there in the first place? Are we really supposed to believe that the bride's brother misses her wedding and turns up halfway through the reception? And this is never explained. Then there's the conversation between Tom Hagen and the Don. When discussing Carlo's future, Tom says, "Now your new son-in-law, we give him something important." To which Vito replies, "Never. Give him a living but never discuss the family business with him." This is surely a conversation that would have taken place way before the wedding. Plus, it's a bit hard to swallow that Hagen would be so out of sync with what his adoptive father's intentions were. Now, maybe I'm being a bit overly picky here, but these annoying inconsistencies just keep cropping up throughout the film. Like when Michael finds out about his dad's assassination attempt from a newspaper headline, which left me wondering how the hell this made the front page on the day it happened. And why is that treacherous scumbag Carlo killed in such a conspicuous and unlikely and bizarre way in the front seat of a moving car, instead of just being quietly bumped off somewhere secluded? And that shot of his foot kicking through the windscreen is weird. But the biggest lapse in logic for me, the real icing on the bullet-riddled cake, unfortunately comes courtesy of one of the best scenes in the whole film, the murders of Solozzo and McCluskey. And here's the million-dollar question that no one ever seems to ask, which is, since they already know where this dinner's taking place, why the hell does Michael have to kill them now? It seems insane that, armed with this new information, they don't just get Al Neri or some other flunky to casually walk into the restaurant and blow Solozzo and his sidekick out of their socks. But for some strange reason, Mikey has to be the trigger man. I mean, if he had come out of the toilet with just his dick in his hands, he might have ended up on the sex offenders register, but he certainly wouldn't need to flee the country. My third serious beef with The Godfather is its timeline. Now, I don't have a major problem with a long, sprawling film that spans a few years, but if you're going to document the passage of time, at least do it right. Now, I'm referring mainly to the part of the film when Michael reappears in Kay's life. Just remember that the last time we saw him was in that shocking car bomb scene in Sicily that killed his lovely bride, Apollonia. I do miss Apollonia. Anyway, he suddenly shows up back in Kay's hometown, and this is how the dialogue goes between them. How long have you been back? I've been back a year, maybe longer. What the fuck? A year? So that means no scenes to illustrate how he beat the murder charges, or to show his rise in the business, or his relationship with Vito. And don't forget that at this point we still haven't witnessed a single interaction between the two most important characters in the film. Now, these oversights cause huge structural problems in the film, which are only aggravated when we discover later that the happy couple suddenly have 2 kids. Couldn't we have had some kind of artfully done montage sequence detailing Michael's family life and his, family life? For me, it would have been a lot more satisfying. Well, I could highlight what I think are other irritating flaws in this classic mob movie, such as Prince of Darkness cinematographer Gordon Willis's power-cut lighting in some of the interior scenes, or how the Jack Waltz sequence is just too rushed, or my own personal theory that Tom Hagen is an asshole. But maybe I'll save those for a rainy day. Anyway, for anyone assuming that I hate The Godfather, please let me assure you I really don't. I think this has some outstanding qualities. Vivid performances, got great dialogue, top-class production design, a classic score, that incredible 5 families rub out at the end, Apollonia. It's just that the weaknesses become more obvious over time, and it makes me wonder how the film will hold up in another 50 years. Although, to be honest, unless I live to 103, I'll be as dead as Luca Brasi by that time, so why should I give a shit? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video, but if you didn't, please feel free to kiss my ass. Take care now.